slight jump now, but I've seen you mention before meaning shifts in a product. The example you gave was watch. A watch had kind of gone from jewelry to tool to fashion item. Firstly, I guess again a kind of brief overview of meaning shift would be handy for people that haven't seen it. But also, what is it? Is it down to the manufacturers solely to make this meaning shift, or again, is that a marketing decision where you'd say, okay, well maybe if you reposition it slightly, that will open up a new avenue for you that maybe you hadn't previously been able to break into?
Meaning is tricky. I've had great trouble with the concept myself. So what is the meaning of meaning? It's kind of what the product or what the graphic design means to me. How do I interpret it? Is this poster a piece of art that I put on my wall, or is this poster something that tells me when the event is going to be? Or ideally, both. Is a watch something that I use to tell the time? Or is a watch something that I use to tell other people about me? It's a fashion statement. It says, etc. Or is it a practical tool that, I use my watch, and that's actually true of the watch I'm wearing right now. You can't see, but it's a German watch. I actually discovered it while reading an airline magazine. It's by a company called Junghans, and it's got all sorts of neat features. First of all, I really like accurate watches, so it has to be controlled by radio. So in Europe, it listens to the radio station that changes the time. And in the United States, it has a different frequency. And in Asia, it listens either in Tokyo or in Beijing. But it also has a stopwatch. And it also has dual times, because I travel a lot. And so it's a tool. In that sense, it's very useful. But it also says something about me, that I care about these functions. Now, I used to wear a cheap Japanese watch that did all this stuff, but I never liked them, because even though they were effective, they were ugly. And I felt that it wasn't saying who I was. I don't like to wear ugly things.
No.
So I really like this watch in that I feel is really quite attractive and has all these different functions I need. I have a friend who wrote a book called A Watch Tells More Than Time. Kind of the meaning sense, okay?
Yeah.
And that's the story that Roberto Verganti, an Italian design professor, and I wrote about it. We said, look, the watch used to be this done by Swiss watchmakers and expensive and done by hand and passed down from generation to generation, and it was sold in jewelry stores. And then we moved over when the digital revolution came. The Swiss didn't know what to make of it, and the Japanese took over, and they started making inexpensive, but extremely accurate, reliable watches. And that's when we went to tools. And then Hayek in the company Swatch brought the watches back to Switzerland by saying, hey, when you go out to dinner at night in a formal restaurant, you dress differently. And when you go to a dance, you dress differently. And when you go to a business meeting, you dress differently. You go out to go play sports, you dress differently. So you should have a different watch for each of those occasions. Just like you have different clothes, just like you have different ties or different shirts or different shoes. We'll give you different watches. Watch is fashion. You shouldn't own one watch. You should own 20. And change your watches periodically. And so he actually reinvigorated the entire Swiss watch industry. Meaning change. Now, a meaning change is actually, it's difficult to get, but it's about the most important items. Now, you are asked, where does a meaning come from? Many times it actually comes from the person, the purchaser, the buyer. And so a company has to be alert how people are using their product. And if people are using their product in ways they never dreamed of, well, go for it. Reposition your product with the way people use it. That's actually a really good thing.